Hello, everyone. Welcome. Rebecca Snow here, owner and mentor of the Nutrition Herbal Collective. And we're going to be talking about nutrition assessment today. Let me share some slides with you. It is gorgeous out. It's like 60 degrees and it's February. I'm so excited. Okay. So I find through mentoring interns that are building their practice and getting their internship hours, the nutrition assessment is the hardest part of the charting note to complete. Some schools don't cover how to write a nutrition assessment. Other schools use techniques that people don't align with, or um, or people just run out of time and feel like they can skip that part. So I wanted to go over the nutrition assessment, the frequently skipped, most useful part of your charting note. So I don't know about you, but sometimes paperwork gives me the urge to eat all the sugar in sight. Definitely stresses me out. I know it stresses you out, particularly after a long week. Maybe your practice is picking up and you're like, wow, I've got 15 follow-ups to write. The easiest thing to skip is the assessment because number one, if you're an independent practitioner, nobody sees it except you. And number two, it's not actually necessary to give your client their recommendations. You can do the intake, write the recommendations, and skip that middle part, which seems like a way to save some time. But let's explore why writing a nutrition assessment is important. It is the link between all the data you collect and the plan you create for your client. It is the justification, it's the why of your note. So while you're sitting with a client, you might be thinking, wow, they're really not eating much protein, or they're not eating much variety. All these symptoms point to a need for more magnesium or a need for more fiber or water. These thoughts are going through your head, so you can easily kind of streamline some recommendations from those thoughts, but it's good to put them in writing. It helps us keep our priorities straight. Every once in a while I'm writing my assessment, I realize that I've kind of missed a piece of what might be a higher priority than where I was going originally. There's somewhat of a hierarchy of the types of interventions we can give our clients. And for instance, if a client's not meeting basic nutritional needs, energy, hydration, macros, it may be premature to get them on fermented foods or to have them start making some specialty food items, bone broth or what have you. So writing your assessment, it's a grounding kind of evaluation. It helps you prioritize yourself, make sure that you're not missing anything. It's also where you communicate to your team what's going through your head. So if you're part of a group practice or you're working with a functional medicine doctor or a conventional medical doctor or a naturopath, or you're working with other nutritionists, it is important to write your assessment so when a teammate looks at your notes, they know why you did what you did in your intervention. It's also just good practice. And if you're in an internship supervision program, it communicates to your mentors what you're thinking and what your justification is for why you recommended what you recommended. So in recent years, I used to write PES statements. I have moved away from these. PES stands for problem, etiology, signs, and symptoms. It's a very concise way to write your nutrition assessment. They are very useful. They're very concise. They may actually be super useful if you work in the type of clinical setting where you only have 30 minutes with a client. A PES statement is a very concise way to identify the key nutritional problem, what the underlying root cause is for that nutritional problem, and what's the evidence for it. Now, if you're doing one-on-one private consulting and you're seeing more complex cases, the PES statement is brief. It's just one sentence, so it may be too limiting for functional nutrition practice. That's part of the reason I have moved away from it in my own clinical practice because of the nature of what I do. But again, in a different clinical setting, it's super useful. Some of the things that a PES statement doesn't account for, functional imbalances like low stomach acid, dysbiosis. There's not a lot of emphasis on accessory nutrients that don't have an RDA or a TUL like CoQ10, probiotics, alpha lipoic acid. Herbal medicine is really not accounted for in the terminology of the PES statement, the types of problems that are identified. In herbal medicine, we tend to look at body system support, energetics such as hot, damp, cool, dry. And also PES statements don't touch on antecedents, triggers, and mediators, which is a deeper dive looking at the bigger picture, genetic, epigenetic factors that are influencing particular concerns that the client has. So in recent years, I have actually, I have looked at, and actually I'm going to reshare for a second in a different format here. So I want to be able to edit this with you while we're looking at it. So in recent years, I have moved towards this format, which was created or designed by Maryland University of Integrative Health. And there's 4 parts: summary of evidence, causative contributing factors, nutrition priority, lifestyle priority. So in summary of evidence, you're really pulling out the key data points from either your ADIME or your SOAP note, the subjective objective data. Now, you're not rewriting everything that you've already told us in your charting note. You're really picking out the key things. So for instance, signs and symptoms, if there's a strong emphasis on digestion, this could be gas, bloating, constipation. Anthropometrics, there might be an increased waist-hip ratio, or there could be low muscle mass according to a BIA, bioelectrical impedance scale or assessment. Then you could point out key lab values. So maybe there is low chloride, which might suggest low hydrochloric acid. There could be maybe some borderline anemia, so there could be low normal hematocrit, low normal hemoglobin with a low MCV, maybe alk phosphatase is low. And dietary findings, this would be, again, you're not going to summarize the whole diet, but what are some of the key findings? Maybe there's under 20 grams of fiber a day, and there's low plant diversity. Okay, so summary of evidence is the key data points that you want to pull out that you think are most salient, most important to your intervention that you're going to create. And then you identify causative contributing factors. And this would be, it's the etiology, it's the root cause. Why, why is this person having gas, bloating, and constipation? Why do they have low muscle mass? What's influencing these lab values and these dietary patterns? There's a great article by Leo Galland on patient-centered care, antecedents, triggers, mediators. If you're having a hard time understanding these different terms, I would recommend that paper. Antecedents are genetic or acquired factors that influence the onset of certain conditions or diseases. Triggers are events or factors, infections, toxin exposure, other things that occur prior to the start or are a trigger for the start of a condition or symptom pattern. Mediators are perpetuating factors. They're biochemical or other factors that perpetuate these conditions. So in this example, antecedent might be a redundant bowel. So if somebody has a large intestine than is typical, that can lead to constipation. A trigger might be several rounds of antibiotics in short sequence. In previous year, mediators may be, they are eating on the run, and they have low appetite. Nutritional factors, so they could have a dislike of textures, bitter compounds. Maybe they're they're a bitter super taster, so they just really have a hard time with plant food. So that's part of the reason why they have low fiber, low plant food, or low vegetable intake. Lifestyle behavior factors, so they have limited mobility, so that's impacting their ability to lift weights or exercise, changing some of their anthropometric values. Also up here, you could put NFPE. I forgot to list that. So that could be things like allergic shiners, sparse eyebrows, and drug nutrient interactions. There might not be any. So this gives you a sense. You're pulling out the key. So the key factors here, there might be limited knowledge of food prep. It is good to identify some causative contributing factors that actually you can influence, because we're not going to change the redundant bowel. We're not going to be able to change the fact that they had several rounds of antibiotics. We can influence mediators. We can influence nutritional factors, lifestyle factors. We can't influence drugs, but we can certainly replenish nutrients that are affected. And we can certainly address the physiological impact of antecedents and triggers, but we're not going to be able to change those things specifically. So when you identify nutritional factors here, it is important to identify things that we can actually change. Otherwise, there's limited really nutritional interventions that we can do. The second part of writing a nutritional assessment after you identified key data points and key causative contributing factors is to look at what's your nutrition priority. Now, you can focus on just your nutrition priority for this visit. You could also think this visit and future visits, but identifying what am I going to work on now and what am I going to work on later. So the nutrition priority is definitely, we're not addressing medical diagnoses. We are addressing nutritional problems. You do want to think hierarchically. I liked this pyramid that was derived from Helm's publication, where, energy balance is at the bottom. So if you have somebody who's underweight and under eating, then that's a high priority. Again, so think hierarchically: energy, hydration, macros, micros, timing of foods, healing foods, herbs, and accessory nutrients. Now, you might prioritize not based on the nutrition priority, but body system specific. So maybe your focus for nutritional interventions is very specific to digestive system and digestive health, and thinking about the 5R protocol. So potentially that is your priority, and because maybe the client's diet is very balanced already, and so you're going a little deeper. And this is where the PES statement's limited, because it's really focusing on nutritional imbalances more so than a functional nutrition approach to healing. So you might choose a nutrition priority based on a system of healing where you're looking at digestive health, starting top to bottom, mouth to anus, or starting, with remove, replace, et cetera, et cetera. So there's lots of different ways to address a body system imbalance nutritionally. And then last but not least, your lifestyle priorities, which encompass everything else in the wellness wheel other than nutrition: sleep, stress, hobbies, activity level, the client's care team, other practitioners you want to refer out to, et cetera, et cetera. It is important when you're writing your nutrition priority and lifestyle priority is to really not bite off more or give the client more than they can chew. And what would be a reasonable number of recommendations or priorities? I mean, I think 3 is a good number to stick with. So choose 3, no more than 3 priorities that particular visit. But again, if the priority is really large, like increase energy intake, and you have somebody with a low appetite, then in order to meet that nutrition priority, there's probably a lot of specific interventions you're going to need to do to accomplish that. So, if it's a really big change, then I would just stick with 1. But if there's small interventions, then it's reasonable to have a few smaller priorities for that visit. So my biggest tip and takeaway is don't let perfect be the enemy of the good, because ultimately, it's just important to write an assessment. It does not need to be perfect. You are welcome to use this template that I use, that I've adopted from MUIH, which is the summary of evidence, causative contributing factors, nutrition priority, lifestyle priority. If you feel good about using PES statements, that's awesome too. But just do something. It's good practice. It'll keep you accountable to evidence-based nutrition practice. And it's good to start those habits early, because they're hard to break once we get out of the habit. All right, well, it's great to see you all. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And that is it for me. Again, this is Rebecca Snow from the Nutrition Herbal Collective, owner and mentor. You can find us at nutritionherbalcollective.com. My email is rebecca@nutritionherbalcollective. Have a good one. Bye-bye.